Hi, I'm Richard Friedman, and welcome to my video cartoon for October 18th, 2025. Here we have Richard Supreme Court crowning of Trump as U.S. King Immune amid flashbacks and no king protests across country today, Saturday, October 18th, 2025. So what I'm doing here, folks, is bringing you a sort of a chronology of the events that have led up to the point that we're at right now, where the country is out protesting. And this is a series of events that I picked out from my cartoons, and I'm going to present that to you today. And here we go. And this is number one here, in terms of time, this was from March 18th, 2025. So this is number one here, and it goes like this. Below excerpt from Trump's Law and Order speech at the Justice Department. If you recall, way back, President Trump made a trip to the Justice Department on a Friday where he laid out his grievances over his considered political foes who were involved in federal investigations into him, and he vowed at that point retribution, concluding with Trump dancing to Village People YMCA. So way back when he was doing that, I wrote a song, and I'm just going to sing a brief paragraph that I remember, a couple lines I remember from the song, and it went like this: to the YMCA song from the Village People. They say, "Young man," in that song, and it goes like this. I said, Democrats, are you listening to me? Or you who voted to impeach should be in jail with crooked Hillary. And that was a couple lines from the song I had written. I did that in a video way back. Okay, and then here goes President Trump here. Here he goes. And he's saying, the Justice Department is starting a proud new chapter in the chronicles of American justice. As the chief law enforcement officer in our country, the chief law enforcement of our country is supposed to be the Attorney General, Pam Bondi at this point. But he's going here calling himself the chief law enforcement officer in our country. So there you go, okay? I will insist upon and demand full and complete accountability for the wrongs and abuses that have occurred, meaning the people who did things against him and voted for impeachment, voted for investigations on January 6th, stuff like that. Okay, so this was from March 18th, and that was the first cartoon in the chronology that I'm presenting to you here. And there in the background was the Justice Department where President Trump made this speech. This is an excerpt from that speech. Okay, that was number one. Okay, and number two here is this. This is the ghosts of founding fathers return to Supreme Court, following President Donald Trump saying May 4th, 2025 on NBC News, Meet the Press, that he's following lawyers' advice as he tries to execute rapid deportations, arguing that the Constitution, arguing that the constitutional right of immigrants to due process is time-consuming. He said it was too time to take 100 years for us to process everybody, So that's what he said. And when asked if he has to, quote, uphold the Constitution, President Trump said, I don't know. So, okay. And the thing about it was when he became president, both times he took a pledge to uphold the Constitution, and now he's saying, I don't know. So there you go. So, and this was the cartoon. This was the ghosts of the founding fathers coming back to the Supreme Court to haunt it. And there they are. And there, okay, all right. You can recognize some of them. There's Ben Franklin, and there's I think this was Adams, and they have some of them that I could remember that I drew. Okay, and and here is George Washington here with the Constitution, and he's saying, we wrote this Constitution to create a government, to the Supreme Court, he's saying this, you see. Here's the Supreme Court. They're coming back to the Supreme Court here to haunt it. We wrote this Constitution to create a government that puts the power in the hands of the people. This is about whether the president is above this Constitution. We never provided for another King George III or future King Trump I. Who agrees with that? And they all raised their hand here. And that was that. That was number 2, the second cartoon here, in the chronology. Okay, there they are. Try to bring it in close as I can. The Constitution, George Washington, founding fathers raising their hand, American flag, the Supreme Court. Okay, and here is number 3. In the chronology here, okay, and this is, here we have presumptive Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump, Cannon courtroom vision, okay? So this goes back to July 8th, 2024, okay? This goes back to July 8th, 2024, before President Trump became president, when he was the nominee, and it looked pretty good, and it turned out to be good for then candidate Trump as he won the election. Given Trump is seeking to use his Supreme Court immunity ruling, see, prior to becoming president, he got his Supreme Court immunity ruling in the election case to scuttle his classified documents case. Okay, so now you see John Bolton is basically being indicted, and it looks like he's got a battle on his hands from some of the stuff that he did with I think it was the Iranians hacking into his social media or whatever he put it up on, and it looks bad. But then again, when you look at it here, it seems like President Trump did the same thing, except for the fact that what happened here with his security advisor John Bolton, what happened here is that the Iranians hacked it, and they probably got that stuff. Whereas with President Trump, it was in Mar-a-Lago, and nobody knows for sure if anybody used any of those bathrooms there and saw what was in there, or was around the place. Those were documented, highly classified documents. Some say it contained nuclear information about our nuclear weapons and stuff. So I mean, if you're going, in my opinion, here is that it's the Supreme Court has crowned president. The theme of this whole project here is to show that the Supreme Court has crowned President Trump the immune king. He didn't get it on his own. He was crowned by the Supreme Court as U.S. immune king, and they did it in their vote of 6-3 with the conservative Republicans voting against, you would say, the liberal Democrats. Okay, all right. Okay. So that's a little bit an injection there, where Trump is accused of mishandling classified records and attempting to obstruct the government from retrieving them after he was out of office. And Eileen Cannon, a federal judge appointed by Trump, who is overseeing that case, has already granted his request to delay the case further so prosecutors can evaluate the effect of the Supreme Court's immunity ruling. Well, they're still evaluating that. That's gone. Immunity ruling. Yeah. So the immunity ruling was that President Trump, anything he did in the line of his duties as president, even though he wasn't president then, he was still president-elect, but he took this stuff over with him. Apparently there was when he was president, it's a debatable point, and they're stretching that out a little bit, I suppose. That was the argument. And Trump's lawyers also noted Justice Clarence Thomas's agreeing opinion in that ruling, and where he went beyond the court's ruling, Justice Thomas went beyond the court's ruling to question the legal authority of Special Counsel Jack Smith, who's now it's just a matter of time before he comes under some kind of legal scrutiny, it seems. Okay, so there it was, and Here was the cartoon here that I did back then. Okay, and this was from July 8th, 2024, ahead of the election. There was that the judge, Eileen Cannon, who was appointed by President Trump, very loyal Eileen here. And here she goes here with, I'm going to give, and here goes President Trump. Then he was still candidate there, most likely candidate to be nominated by the Republicans. Your Honor, my attorneys agree with highly respected legal scholar, Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas here, who has written that he is not sure that any office for the special counsel has been established by law as the Constitution requires. So then, if that's the case, then President Nixon should have remained in office because they appointed a special counsel to review the tapes and everything, go after that. So that was a mistake too. So history has to be written, and maybe some of the people who were involved in that, 90 years old, by now 85, 90 years old, need to be scrutinized too. You know, if you go along that route, take that route, that's where it leads to. Okay? And then here goes Judge Eileen Cannon, federal judge Eileen Cannon, and she's saying, Mr. Trump, I will permit your attorneys to argue this serious constitutional concern before this court for as long as it takes. It takes as long as for President Trump to be elected president. Okay, and here goes President Trump here, and he's candidate Trump, excuse me. There's another legal exoneration, proof that he's innocent. There's another legal exoneration. So here you have it. There was Clarence Thomas here, thumbs up to Eileen Cannon, and adding his 2 cents there about the legality of John Smith being appointed as special prosecutor, diminishing even further the prosecution of President Trump for those classified documents at Mar-a-Lago. Okay, they were there. I mean, nobody can dispute that they weren't there. You know, President Trump was very angry at that they did that, and he's very angry at that. But they tried their best. From what all we can do is what we hear and what we read. We have to assume reportedly. This is all reportedly that they tried their best to avoid this, and then he was the candidate to return the stuff, return documents, and it seems like reportedly he did not do that, so they were left with no alternative, I suppose. I know he really got mad at that justice there, that Biden's justice. I forget his name now. So there it is. Okay. And a lot of people say that he didn't work hard enough to pursue the case with President Trump. So he came out as a loser on both ends of the stick, you know. So there was Eileen Cannon, President Trump, Clarence Thomas, and there you had that. Okay. And here we got the Supreme Court here. Okay. And this was back here in July 9th, 2025, the most recent one here. And it goes, Richard Trump, U.S. Supreme Court vision. This was President Trump's vision. President Trump, in the wake of the court's apparent this was an 8-1 decision on July 8th, addressing its wisdom for clearing the way for the Trump administration to go forward with more mass firings and reorganizations of the federal government without any congressional oversight or approval. Example, dismantling the Department of Education, steps potentially shutting down U.S. aid, etc. Given this Supreme Court decision overruled the lower court's order that had blocked Trump's above executive order to do what he was doing with the layoffs and everything, and closing departments. And the presiding judge there was U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston. Okay, so that's what happened there. So there you see what happened. This was the Supreme Court now, an 8-1, basically overruled the federal judges. So what the Supreme Court has a pattern of doing is they overrule a an injunction of a lower court, a lower federal judge, Supreme Court does it, but they don't give any legal opinions of why or how they do it. They just say, well, we'll push it down for now. We're just going to overrule it. Need more scrutiny or more, let's send it back to the lower courts for further review. So they're not giving any legal opinions. So they're acting like basically like a post office. This Supreme Court is basically the United States Supreme Post Office here, where they take these cases and send them back. Some go back, some go into God knows where. And there is President Trump out here. So this is the U.S. Supreme Court Post Office in that respect, okay? So court expresses no view on the legality of any planned agency layoffs or any of that taking place so far, and we hereby lift any lower court's injunction on this matter as it now stands. So there you have it there. And here goes President Trump here, and he's thumbs up, and he's saying, I respect the court's wise decision to overrule the judicial tyranny of Democrat Clinton-nominated U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston. I call her Judge Ill because she has Trump derangement syndrome. That was the syndrome. Anybody who was really obsessed with President Trump, he said they had Trump deranged syndrome, you know. So he would call Shifty Schiff a victim of one of those, of that disease. You know, I'm sure he would. So there you go. And that was that. That was the Supreme Court Post Office. And all they do, all that legal study, and they went to Harvard, Yale, Princeton, wherever they went, Columbia, wherever they went, all these, they don't use any of that stuff. All they do, we go back to the lower court for further investigation and further scrutiny. So that's the essence, you know. On the basis of that, I could have been a Supreme Court justice. Anybody out there could have done that, right? So I would put on a black robe, and there we go. We got it made. And there it is. And there's President Trump, thumbs up. All right, folks. Thank you for watching my video. God bless you. Hang in there, and I'll see you next time. Bye.